Hello everybody and welcome to my video series on how to play Pokemon. This episode ties in with the last one pretty closely. If you haven't seen that one yet, I highly recommend you do before you watch this one. Last time we determined that there's a physical attack and defense and a special attack and defense. So that begs the question, how does the game separate these two types of attacks? The answer is damage categories. Damage categories are the way moves and damage are classified, and they determine how Pokemon are able to defend against certain types of moves. Let's start this episode off with a history lesson. Prior to Generation 4, attacks were categorized for attack and special attack as they should be, but this was based solely on what type each attack was. I'll let that sink in for a few seconds, and then I'll give you an example of why this was troublesome. Alakazam, as of Generation 2, had access to the 3 elemental punch moves, Fire Punch, Ice Punch, and Thunder Punch. Alakazam has a high amount of special attack and doesn't really perform well with physical moves. Considering the nature of these moves, the fact that they're punches, one would have to assume that they'd be classified as physical and therefore utilize the attack stat for damage. However, this was not the case prior to Generation 4. Based on the way damage categories were defined during this time, fire, ice, and electric moves were all considered special regardless of the nature of the move. This gave Alakazam an incredible amount of type coverage and gave him a very threatening presence in the games. In Generation 4, 3 definitive damage categories were introduced: physical, special, and status. This broke the trend of type-based damage categories and allowed each individual move to have its own attribute, be it physical or special if it inflicted damage, or status if it didn't inflict damage. This is currently the way all moves are classified, and surprisingly it's not all that complicated. The nature of most moves is highly indicative of what damage category it falls under, and even if you're still unsure, you're able to check each move's class within the in-game description of that move. So now that you know your stats and damage categories, be sure to tune into the next episode where I'll be covering Pokemon's evolutions. See you then.